If I told you that there are cars that brands create with the full intention that you will never drive them, would you believe me? Yes, they are called concept cars, vehicles that brands design as a kind of preview of the future. They are not made to be sold or to be driven on the street, but to be exhibited at events and to show how far they can go with their technology and design. Basically, they are prototypes with which brands say, look what we could do. But here comes the twist. The vast majority of these cars are never mass-produced. Once they have fulfilled their showroom function, many brands keep them in museums or collections, private, but others, they disappear. Simply, they are literally destroyed. And we are not talking about a simple dismantling, but a total elimination, as if they had never existed. Why so much obsession with making them disappear? Well, there are several reasons. First, many of these cars are not even fully functional. Some don't even have and legally they can't circulate because they don't have a number engine buy-in. Second, the brands don't want their competitors to get their hands on technology or ideas that have not yet hit the market. And third, because in a way, these cars are secrets. Trade. To make sure that no trace of them remains, the brands demand video of their destruction. Nissan in particular takes this very seriously, evidence. But here's where things get interesting. Despite all this secrecy, there was a small glitch in the process, and someone found 3 of these concept cars before they were destroyed. How is this possible? It turns out that someone revealed their location before they went through the shredder, and that's where a user named Dayton Cooper snapped photos and leaked them on the internet. This allowed to us learn the details of 3 Nissan models that were about to disappear forever. These cars were in a junkyard in Tennessee, USA, specifically in Nashville. They were not in a top secret place or under extreme surveillance. In fact, the most curious thing is that this junkyard seemed to be a fairly accessible place, to the point that from Google Maps you could see part of the area where the cars were. Something strange, considering that these vehicles were not supposed to be seen by anyone. But what were these cars? This is where the story gets even more interesting. They were 1. Nissan Quest concept, a special version of this minivan that never made it to production. 2nd, Nissan Bevel concept, 2007, a design intended for adults between 40 and 60 years old, with a rather futuristic concept for the time. 3. Nissan NCS concept, 1999-, of which there is so little information that there are practically only a couple of photos on the internet. These cars were in good condition, considering that they had been abandoned for years. But what was most striking was that all of them read no VIN, confirming that they had no VIN and therefore could not be legalized for circulation. Finally, Nissan executed the order to destroy them completely. They did not want any part 2 or detail of these cars end up in the wrong hands, although the destruction of these vehicles was planned from the beginning. The fact that someone discovered them before they were crushed left us one last chance to see them and learn their history. So there you have it. In this video we will see 3 concept cars that were about to be forgotten, but that, thanks to a small mistake and someone curious with a camera, we now know they existed. First, we will look at the least special of all, the Nissan Quest concept, a special version of the well-known minivan that never reached the market. This model was proof that design and functionality could go hand in hand, with a more modern and aerodynamic style than conventional models. It was presented at different exhibitions as a futuristic vision of what a minivan could be, but in the end it was forgotten and ended up in this junkyard without even being used. On the other hand, we have the most peculiar car of the group, the Nissan Bevel concept, 2007. This model was completely different from any other Nissan of the time. Designed for people between 40 and 60 years, it combined the practicality of a minivan with the functionality of a work vehicle. How did it do it? Its design allowed the seats to stow away completely, making it a small workshop on wheels, ideal for someone who needed to easily transport tools or materials. Although it sounded like an interesting idea, it was never produced. Now, what condition were these cars in before they were destroyed? For having been for years abandoned, they were not too bad. The bodies were still intact, although some had details such as broken windows and some accumulated dirt. The wheels were still in place, except for one on the Quest, which appeared to have been removed. The interior, according to the leaked information, was relatively clean, although quite dusty, something completely normal after so much time without use. But as much as they were in acceptable condition, their fate was already sealed, and they had no VIN, they couldn't be driven, and Nissan didn't want anyone have them or any parts to end up in the wrong hands, so the only option was to dispose of them completely. And so, 2 vehicles with futuristic designs, which at the time represented Nissan, ended up as scrap, a sad story for any car lover, but also a rarity in the automotive industry that we rarely get to see: innovation. Discovering the exact location of these cars was almost like solving a puzzle. They weren't hidden in a secret bunker or in an ultra-secure Nissan facility. These concept cars were found in a junkyard in Nashville, Tennessee, a place that oddly enough had neither extreme security measures nor barriers to prevent seeing what was inside. In fact, anyone with a little patience and Google Maps could find them. But why did order Nissan their destruction? Well, there are several reasons, and they all have to do with the fact that these cars were never intended to be on the road. The VIN, Vehicle Identification Number, is like a car's DNI, a unique number that allows it to be registered, and legalized for street use. These three vehicles did not have such a number because they were never intended for sale. Since they did not have a VIN, legally they were like ghosts. They could not be registered, insured, or driven on public roads. When brands create prototypes like these, they do so not only to test new ideas, but also to keep certain technologies or designs secret. If these cars had ended up in the hands of someone else, whether a collector or even another brand, Nissan ran the risk that some of their engineering would end up being used without their authorization. The companies don't mess around when they decide that a concept car has to go. To ensure that no one resells it or uses its parts, Nissan requires video evidence of the complete destruction of the car. That is, they must record the exact moment when the vehicles are crushed, making sure that absolutely nothing reusable remains. When we reviewed the mechanical details, something appeared that you don't see every day. In the Nissan Quest concept, one of its wheels was absent, which left a very peculiar braking system in sight. You could see that it had perforated discs, something usually found in sports cars to improve ventilation and braking in extreme conditions. In addition, it appeared to have 4-piston calipers, suggesting that Nissan wanted to give it a touch of high performance, or at least experiment with that technology in a minivan. But the biggest mystery was in the Nissan Bevel concept. Here, the perforated discs were not circular, but with a hexagonal design similar to a honeycomb. Why would they do something like that? 1. It could have been an experiment to improve heat dissipation. 2. Perhaps they were looking for something purely aesthetic to make the car look more advanced. 3. Or it just didn't work out, and that's why we never saw it in production. The curious thing is that no other design like it has been seen in a real car, which leaves the question of whether Nissan was planning to implement it in future models, or if it was just an idea that never got beyond the testing phase. By now we know that Nissan wanted to wipe these concept cars off the map, but what no one expected was that before they were destroyed, someone would find them and leak their location. How was this achieved? Thanks to a mix of online research, Google Maps, and some luck. It all started when Dayton Cooper, the person who leaked the information, gave some details about where the cars were located prior to their destruction. We knew they were at a junkyard in Nashville, Tennessee, but we didn't have the exact location. This is where come into play Google Maps and Street View. Using the leaked photos and comparing them with satellite images, they started searching for scrapyards in Theoria until they found one that perfectly matched the images of the vehicles before they were destroyed. The most surprising thing is that this was not a super secret place or closed to the public. On the contrary, from the street, you could see the cars without any problem. Something quite strange if you assume that Nissan wanted them to disappear without a trace. The tests, comparing photos and Google Street View to confirm that this was the correct site. Several key elements in the images were analyzed, one a sign in the background of the leaked photos. The images of the Nissan Bevel showed a brightly colored sign which turned out to be from a Mexican butcher shop and taqueria located right across the street from the junkyard. 2. An orange truck parked near the cars in the leaked photos, which also appeared in Street View in exactly the same location. 3. A yellow and white sign with the name Express Scrap Metal, which could be seen on Google Maps and perfectly matched what appeared in the photos of the scrapyard. After comparing all these details, there was no doubt the junkyard where were these cars before their destruction was real, and it was just outside Nashville, the exact place of destruction. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, and follow me on Instagram to keep up with more discoveries. See you in the next one. Best regards, everyone.